when I marched back into my home, followed by 30 members of my old game, Hitomi and Kano were obviously overjoyed to see me. The happiness raised my own spirits unexpectedly high. I felt a palpable sense of accomplishment. "All right, detective," I shouted. "Let's do this." A resounding echo cried throughout the workroom, and the gang set out for the scramble.
What's the matter?
Tommy asked me as we made our way through the busy streets. "What's the matter with what?"
You look pretty pale.
She peered good and hard into my face. Do I now?
Are you tired or something? I mean, you've been kind of going all out all day long, after all.
Nah, it's nothing. I kept my voice nice and bright. I'm just a little hungry is all. So, don't worry about me. Or I'll forward either, okay? I swear, I'll keep you safe, I swear, I'll keep you safe, Hitomi.
All right.
Hitomi gave a tiny nod. Just leave it to me. Alfred's got nothing on this guy. I thumped my chest in a display of bravado. But he could feel the sweat. I could feel the sweat beading on my brow. When we reached the scramble, I took his place. Wait.
Your place.
I took my place at the location specified by the battle plan Kano had drawn up. Hitomi was only a few meters away. Whatever happened, I was in a good position to shield her from harm. There were 3 minutes left until the appointed rendezvous. I wonder what sort of person was going to show up. Still, I knew I couldn't scan the crowd too much. I needed to act as naturally as possible so Alfred wouldn't be suspicious. I risked a glance over at Hitomi. Maybe now wasn't the time for admiring, but I couldn't help but think about how cute she looked. In some ways, seeing her there felt similar to when I first seen her that morning, in the very same spot. The difference was that this time, it wasn't just Hitomi's good look that made me find her so attractive. We might have only spent a few hours together, but in that time, I learned a lot about her as a person. I knew what was important to her. What her worries were. Her wants and desires. And also, I learned what a kind-hearted person she was. I recalled what happened back in the workroom. Even though her own life had been in danger all day, Hitomi had shed tears for my father and my sister. She really understood people's grief and suffering. What do I do if I can't protect someone as good as her? I muttered under my breath, clutching my right leg. My shin was throbbing wickedly where the pipe had smashed against it. I've been okay walking so far, but any intense fighting and the leg might just give out. But I couldn't let myself worry about that now. If it came down to it, I planned to be a human shield to protect Hitomi if I had to. I looked at my watch. Only 1 minute to go before 7 p.m. I glanced at Hitomi again. Saw her eyes widen with surprise. Quickly, I followed her gaze across the plaza. I spotted a tall, white man approaching.
Hitomi, I don't like having to do this, but we can't wait any longer. Seeing the look of determination on my face, she gave a tiny, reluctant nod. Her shoulders began to tremble. Hitomi.
I'll be alright. I'm just a little nervous, that's all.
She had the right to be nervous. Alphard was after the antiviral that she had in her bloodstream. Once he had it, Hitomi would become a liability that he would want to dispose of. And right now, the only person who could keep her safe was me. I clenched my jaw tight and tried to look confident. Please, just try to relax. I'll protect you in my life, if I have to.
Protecting Hitomi is my job.
Achi, you're back!
I said I see you through to the very end. Didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
Achi. Hitomi gazed back at Achi with grateful reassurance. I cleared my throat softly, but Achi and Hitomi continued to stare earnestly at one another. Eventually, the tough-looking young man standing behind Achi spoke up.
I've got 30. That enough?
Yeah, I nodded. That'll be fine. More importantly, have you heard what we'll be doing yet?
Catch up with the bad guy, keep your boy safe. Same old thing we always do.
The guy flashed a grin. You got it, I said. We'll be counting on you then. With 30 odd people at their disposal, we'll be able to encircle this meeting area no problem. The preparations are all set. It's time to confront Alfred at last.
All right, detective.
Achi shouted.
Let's do this!
I gave a firm nod. Nine minutes later, 6:59 p.m. Me and the others were in position around the scramble. Each subtle tick of the second hand was like a sharp prod to my nerves. My whole body was stiff with tension. We could not let ourselves fail. There's too much at stake. Here now, hundreds of thousands of lives are on the line. With Shibuya on lockdown, the area around the scramble had been seized by panic. There had been multiple traffic collisions. The sidewalks were crowded with scared people, overturning cars and abandoned motorcycles clogged the streets. Amidst the chaos, emergency vehicles sped by furious speeds. But the fire emergency personnel, even the police, were short-handed. The whole Shibuya had begun to look like a war zone. The main roads had been blocked to normal traffic, and trains weren't stopping at the stations. In effect, the city was in a state of complete shutdown. I glanced again at my wristwatch. 6:59 p.m. 10 seconds. 11 seconds, 12 seconds, 13 seconds, 14 seconds. I scarce remember to breathe. Hitomi stood in front of the statue of Hachiko. She wasn't carrying a Tachi case this time. But the moment was otherwise a strange mirror to stakeouts at 10 o'clock that morning. She looked terrified. I couldn't blame her. The criminals weren't after some case full of money this time. This time, they were out for blood. Her blood. I did a slow scan of the area. Achi was standing not too far away. His companions were strewn about here and there, carrying on as normal. Here in Shibuya, those guys fit right in with the crowd. And they had the area around Hitomi completely surrounded. Yet again, I looked at my wristwatch. 6:59 p.m. 35 seconds, 36 seconds, 37 seconds, 38 seconds, 39 seconds. I forced myself to take several deep breaths. I focused on the sound of my own heartbeat, and exhaled until all the breath was expelled from my lungs. And then, it all started. My cell phone rang.
I've got him.
It was Daisuke.
The organ trafficker who devised the kidnapping? It was him.
Where is he? I asked. Is he close by?
I've got him on camera now. He's on the other side of the intersection.
I looked out across the scramble. There were so many people that it was hard to tell who was or wasn't suspicious. Can you describe him for me?
The tall foreign guy. The one wearing the glasses.
A tall foreigner? My eyes drifted over the crowd. Aha! There he was. As I got closer, my eyes went wide. This man was someone I had met before. Leland Palmer, lecturer from the English department at Hitomi Maria's school. Is he Alfarge? Palmer was walking right towards Hitomi. Hitomi didn't seem to have noticed him yet. I glanced back at his wristwatch. It was 7 p.m. on the dot. And Hitomi realized Palmer was approaching her. She was too stunned to react. He walked directly up to her, the corners of his mouth curling up into a smile.
Hello, Hitomi.
He said in English.
How are you doing?
Professor Palmer? What are you doing here?
Hitomi's voice came out in an anxious squeak.
Why, I'm here to take your blood, of course.
This time he spoke Japanese, an easy fluency totally different from his usual manner of speech.
I'm the one who injected you with the Uo virus. I've been waiting so long for an opportunity to arise. It's been quite antagonizing, you know, spending 6 months and more pretending to be a mild-mannered English lecturer.
Professor, You're Alfred, aren't you?
Let's get down to business, shall we? Neither of us has much time.
Hitomi stiffened.
Please, tell me the laboratory password.
After I have your blood. This will only take a few seconds. I've got a device here that will make the extraction quite simple.
No way. The password first.
That would violate the terms we already negotiated.
Hitomi and Palmer glared at one another.
All right.
Hitomi said at last.
Why don't you negotiate with Canaan instead?
Canaan?
Hitomi took her cell phone out and dialed. The phone rang repeatedly, and Canaan didn't pick up.
What's going on?
Hitomi's face went pale.
Come on, Canaan.
I, standing near enough to overhear their conversation, grew increasingly anxious as he watched the pair stare at the phone. What's the right move here? Should I keep waiting? I had to hope talking with Canaan would work out. I waited for the call to go through. But Canaan never answered. Has something to happen to her in Tateno? I felt my heart pounding.
Now then, shall I take what I came here for?
Palmer took a step closer to Hitomi. I react instinctively. Freeze! I drew my gun and trained on a criminal. Nearby pedestrians scattered in fear. Seizing the moment, Achi darted in to protect Hitomi. Palmer let out a tiny sigh.
So you're breaking the terms you agreed upon.
I don't negotiate with terrorists. I inched my way closer. My point of aim never wavering. Hitomi! I shouted. Call Canaan again. Again, Hitomi dialed her cell phone. Palmer opened the attaché case he was carrying. One more move, now shoot! I shouted. The terrorists ignored the warning, producing a set of small glass vessels from within the case.
If you want to shoot me, then shoot me.
He said.
Assuming you don't mind this getting scared about.
Is that?
Surely you don't need me to explain.
Stanley was right. Alfard had weaponized the virus. In my best to conceal my horror, I tried to sound defiant. You can't let that loose here.
And why is that?
Because if you do, you'll be infected too.
True. But so will all of the innocent bystanders around us.
A thin smile crawled across Palmer's face. Did you come here to carry out a suicide attack, Mr. Alfred?
Hardly. I have no desire to die here. All I want is to get a little of this girl's blood and then go quietly on my way. But that all depends on you, doesn't it?
His face was overflowing with confidence. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off here. Something about this man's demeanor hinted at something.
Well then, what will it be?
Palmer continued.
Will you condemn the people of Shibuya to death?
Cursing inwardly, I lowered my gun. Palmer flashed a triumphant grin, then resumed his stroll towards Hitomi. stood frozen on the spot.
Susumu!
The shout had come from Achi. In an instant, a dozen members of SOS headed towards Palmer from all sides.
F luck, pal.
Suzumu said.
Turns out we're not actually innocent bystanders.
Now it was his turn to grin.
You're completely surrounded. Give up and tell us the password now. And just for the record, we ain't scared of no virus.
The tough-looking young men radiated bravado. Without hesitation, closed in around the kidnapper.
Well, you certainly don't look like police.
Palmer cast a bemused glance around himself. And Nolan continued as Palmer. He played him before.
Get it.
Achi.
You're right about that.
Achi said.
I mean, just take a look. I gathered up a bunch of people who love Shibuya more than their own lives in order to take your ass down.
He kept Hitomi shielded behind him while he spoke.
There's no escape.
He declared.
You've lost.
Lost? Me?
Well, it sure doesn't look like you're gonna get away.
Palmer grimaces at Achi's words.
I see. And it appears our then it appears our negotiations are at a close.
Enough to the high and mighty act.
Suzumu stomped aggressively towards Palmer. Hey! I snapped. Easy now! He couldn't risk the scuffle of spitting the virus crashing to the ground.
What a shame.
Palmer strung his right arm up high. Aaron watched in dismay as his hand shot up. The vials he's been holding sailed upwards towards the backdrop of the evening sky.
Look out!
Achi shouted.
Catch him! Catch him!
A tremendous blast blew me off my feet. As I crashed to the pavement, searing pain shot through my entire body. I knew at once that a bomb had gone off. But why? It didn't make any sense. Alphard had no intention of carrying out a suicidal terror attack. I was certain of that. If that had been his intent, he could have just done so at any time without getting through the trouble of putting on this whole charade. Was there some reason that this guy would blow himself up under these circumstances at this specific moment? As I lay dying, I had a thought. Could it be? Has Stanley not come to Scramble because he knew this was going to happen? Damn it.
Was that guy Alfred? The man arrived in front of Hitomi and began speaking to her. Hitomi, Maria, even my father. This must be the guy who was responsible for everything. I felt a pressure urge to flatten him right then and there. Still, I knew I couldn't blow my cover until Kano gave the signal. Suppressing my raw emotions, I readied myself for action. B. Protecting Hitomi has to come first. I can't let anything happen to her. Why hasn't it happened yet? Why hasn't Kano given the signal?
Freeze!
Suddenly, Kano rushed forward with his gun drawn. Knowing the pain in my leg, I dashed for Hitomi as fast as I could. I cut in between Kano and Alfred, quickly pulling Hitomi out of danger.
Hitomi!
Kano shouted.
Call Canaan again.
Shielded by me now, she brought up her phone. She brought up her cell phone and dialed the number. But some time passed and there was no answer. Had there been some kind of trouble on Canaan's end? Looking increasingly worried, Hitomi tried calling several more times. Then Alfred withdrew some strange files from the attaché case he brought. Kano's face wavered with alarm. This had to be the terrorist trump card, then. Kano and Alfred were having some sort of debate. I couldn't hear the specifics, but tensions were clearly running high. Kano hesitantly lowered his gun. Alfred flashed a haughty, confident grin. Looks like it's time for our trump card. Susumu! I shouted at the top of my lungs. At my signal, the gang emerged from the crowd and moved en masse to help to hem Alfred in.
Surrounded?
The terrorist was visibly at a loss.
You certainly don't look like police.
You're right about that, I said. I mean, just take a look. I gathered up a bunch of people who love Shibuya more than their own lives in order to take your ass down. As I spoke, I made sure to keep Hitomi shielded behind me. The pain in my leg was getting worse and worse, but I tried my utmost to not let it show. There's no escape, I declared. You've lost.
Lost? Me?
Well, it sure doesn't look like you're gonna get away. Alfred grimaced at my words.
I see. Then it appears our negotiations are to close.
Why did he still seem so confident? Something definitely didn't feel right. Oh, he doesn't care if he survives. Oh no. He was going to unleash the virus, accepting that it would kill him too. Alfred met my eyes, and seeing the haunted realization there, the terrorist flashed a wicked and triumphant grin.
Enough in the high and mighty act.
Susumu shouted. He began to stomp towards Alfred, but he didn't reach in time. The vials in Alfred's hand went sailing high into the air.
Look out! Catch him! Catch him!
I gestured towards my comrades to fan out across an open space. Then out of nowhere, a huge explosion blew me clean off my feet. My eardrums ruptured, and my world was engulfed in an eerie silence as if time had stopped. As I laid crumbled on the pavement, the one thing that still rang in my ears was the tinkling of glass as countless vials smashed into concrete.
I gave him a silent salute. It was a breach of protocol to salute while in plain clothes and without his cap. Still, it was the best way. I had to let Tateno know how I felt. I'll leave the rest to you. Tateno took one last look over his shoulder before finally leaving the workroom. Emilio.
I gingerly flexed my right elbow. It was still a little sore, but it shouldn't interfere with my ability to drive.
Does that hurt?
Asked the girl called Canaan. No. I'm alright.
Good thing I didn't kill you.
She said, her tone matter of fact.
You ought to thank that younger detective. If he hadn't stopped me, you wouldn't be here right now.
Is that right? I looked over at Kano. He was talking to Achi and the others about something. The last time I had seen Achi had been back to Kotone's wake. I felt a strong surge of emotion, seeing how the boy had grown into a fine young man.
Are you sure you don't mind driving?
Kanan's voice snapped me back into the moment. Yes. It won't be a problem. Back when she'd attacked me on that rooftop, she'd moved too quickly for me even to get a glimpse of her face. Now that I was able to get a good look at her, I was shocked by how young she looked. And yet, there was a cold gleam in her eyes, a glitter of awareness with no trace of emotion behind it whatsoever. In my long career as a detective, I had seen eyes like that before. It was a look I knew well. The look of someone who had killed, and had done so many times.
I'm so sorry about all this. Please look after my sister.
Hitomi said. She bowed deeply. No, I'm the one who should apologize. I would have liked to go on, to say that helping now was the least I could do to atone for what I'd done earlier. But I stopped myself there. Nothing I could say to Hitomi Osawa could possibly earn her forgiveness. Silently, I lowered my head. My subsequent actions would have to make up for my crimes. I had to hope that this was possible.
Canaan, you look after my sister too.
Hitomi bowed once more. You two know each other. I looked at the two girls in surprise.
Canaan is my sister's friend.
Hitomi said.
I just met her for the first time today.
What strange series of events could have transpired for Maria and Canaan to wind up as friends? I felt a prickle of curiosity, but now was not the time for that conversation. Daisuke reappeared. He had gone to fetch his car keys.
You know where it's parked, yeah?
He asked. Same as back in the day?
That's right. Over where we always hung out with Katone back in grade school.
All at once, I was hit with a surge of childhood memories. Sky was a piercing blue. The droning of cicadas echoed in my ears. A refreshing breeze brought intermittent respite from the heat. During summer vacation, they spent their days here, in the parking lot behind Daisuke's house. Daisuke and I played near the stairs at the side of the lot, the blazing sun beating down on us. Katone would always come along with some iced barley tea for us. We would race to see who could drink theirs up the fastest. The cold and fragrant tea flowed down our welcoming throats. Most of the time, it was me who would finish first. Daisuke often wound up choking and spitting his out. Katone would flash him a motherly and sympathetic smile. Then Daisuke would grin back at her, sheepishly, and fuss with his hair. That had all been nearly 40 years ago. But I could envision their smiles as vividly now as ever. They were my only fond memories of my childhood. I took the keys from Daisuke, clutching them firmly in my fist. All right, I said. We'll be back. I lifted up Maria and, with Canaan supporting her on the other side, began to head for the door. Then Kano called out to me.
Detective Tateno,
There was a look of sadness on the younger man's face. Don't let yourself become a detective like me. I had the words right on the tip of my tongue, but I swallowed them back down. It suddenly seemed petty to trivialize the aspirations Kano had held for so long. Once Maria is safe, I'll turn myself in. After I made sure that Maria got to the laboratory, I would cease to be a detective, and instead would simply be a criminal. But despite the failures that had brought me to this position, Nothing I had said up until now had been a lie. Of that much, I could be proud. Never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect. Ever. I could at least try to be the detective Kano had so admired until the very end. As I left the room, Kano saluted me crisply. Ordinarily, a detective wouldn't salute in plain clothes or without his cap. The little breach of etiquette just showed all the more clearly how Kano felt. If I hadn't been holding Maria up, I would have returned the gesture. Leaving Endo Electronics, Canaan and I carried Maria up a hectic Dogonzaka. The parking lot was less than a minute away by foot. Before long, however, we found our way blocked by a veritable wall of people. It was a riot squad, with Kuze at the head. Director Kuze.
Tateno, what do you plan on doing with that girl?
What are you planning on doing with her?
I already informed Kano that she's up to be put under quarantine. If she's allowed to remain free, all of Shibuya will be in danger.
Canaan took a step forward. I could sense that she was about to move in for the kill. Easy now, I said softly. Wait. As skilled as Canaan was, she was no match for an entire armed police squad.
I'm not going to take all of them on.
She murmured.
I'm just going to take the man in charge hostage.
I swallowed. Capture Kuze and then run off. It could work. Considering the time limit that we're facing, I knew that we had to find some way to force our way through here. Still, given how far we still had to go to reach the laboratory, I wanted to avoid direct conflict as much as possible. Give me 1 minute. No, just 30 seconds. I turned and stared at Kuze. Us two had known each other since our rookie days. Director Kuze, tell me, what is it that you believe in?
What do I believe in?
Yes, weren't you always the one who said that you needed to put faith in your subordinates no matter what?
Well, yes. Yes, that's right.
Kuze's eyes wavered ever so slightly. In that case, put your faith in me. No, put your faith in Kano.
Kano?
He believes that saving Maria Osawa will let us save Shibuya. He's doing everything he can to make that happen. Kuze's lips curled into a weary grin.
That sounds like Kano, alright. Always thinking in such simple terms.
Usually, the simple answer is the right one, sir. People like you and me overthink things. We make them more complicated than they need to be. Just consider for a moment. Will putting Maria Osawa under quarantine clear up the case? No, it won't. So long as we don't know how she was infected with the virus, we can't rule out the possibility that other people have been infected as well. I kept my eyes locked on Kuze's. Director Kuze, right now, we need to do more than anything is get our hands on that antiviral drug. We need to be helping Kano. Please, sir. Kuze furrowed his brow in thought for a few moments, then shook his head.
Hello, buddy. Come on. I can't do that. You gotta understand the position of it.
The director's voice squeaked into his childish register. Canaan narrowed her eyes.
What's this guy's deal?
She whispered. Well, it's hard to explain. But when his voice gets like that, it means... Gothang. He was being completely serious. We were going to have to break through by force. I took a determined step forward. Suddenly, Kuze let out a pained yelp. Then, as I watched in surprise, he proceeded to collapse onto the pavement.
It hurts! It hurts! Have I been infected with the virus too?
The riot squad immediately rushed to the director's side. As I stood there, dumbstruck, Kuze secretly flashed me a knowing wink. That was a terrible
performance.
Canaan muttered. Yeah. But it was a tour de force, as far as I'm concerned. Inwardly, I gave my boss a nod of respect. Slipping past the riot squad, Canaan and I headed for the parking lot. Several members of Kuze's team hurried to chase after us.
I'll follow them!
Kuze cried out as he writhed on the ground.
Everyone stay back! If you get too close to Muriel-sama, you'll be infected as well!
The riot squad stopped in their tracks. Canaan and I took the opportunity to hurry out of sight. Darting through some narrow alleyways, we arrived at the parking lot. The area had changed since my youth, but some of the old air of nostalgia still lingered. There it is. I spotted the minivan with Endo Electronics written on the side. I gently laid Maria on the back seat. She was still apparently unconscious. Once Canaan had climbed into the passenger seat, I hit the gas and sped off.
How far is it to the lab?
Canaan asked. Normally it would take about 15 minutes, but with this traffic, it's hard to say. I avoided the stop and go of Dokenzaka, taking side streets as I headed towards Shibuya Station. Once we had re-emerged on the main thoroughfare, however, I spotted a checkpoint set up ahead. Barricades and armored vehicles were blocking the road. The scale of the security effort showed just how grave the situation truly was. I hit the brakes. What do we do?
What do we do?
Canaan spoke without taking her eyes off the barricade ahead. I thought for a few moments before arriving at an answer. See? We'd have to plow on through. Get in the back seat. I told Canaan.
Why?
I want you to hold on to Maria so she doesn't fall. A feisty grin came to Canaan's face.
You got it.
Canaan quickly clambered into the back seat, and I gunned the accelerator. It's do or die now. I clenched my teeth as the van picked up speed. Then, a patrol car came roaring out of a nearby side road. What the? Reflexively, I eased up on gas. The police cruiser cut in front of the minivan, turning to head right towards the roadblock. Crashing into the barricade, it plowed on through, not stopping until it slewed up onto the curb beyond. The car's impact had made enough space for another vehicle to slip through in its wake. Alright, here it goes. The minivan barreled on through the checkpoint. I wondered who in the world had been driving the cruiser. My phone rang, and I picked up as I sped onwards.
French.
Were you able to break through safely?
It was the voice of Detective Kajiwara. I had thought he was at the Osawa residence. That patrol
car.
That patrol car just now. Was that you?
The call came in from Task Force HQ, saying that Kano had found Maria. I figured maybe Kano was planning to take her to Okoshi Pharmaceutical. And so I thought he'd need to make his way through one of the checkpoints here. But the fact that it was you, Detective Tateno, now that was quite unexpected.
He let out a weak chuckle. Kajiwara, are you hurt?
No, don't worry about me. Just, please, help Maria. I made a promise to her father that I'd save his daughter, no matter what.
I could hear the energy draining from Kajiwara's voice. Understood. I'll keep that promise for you, then.
Thank you.
The line went dead. He'd crashed headlong through that barricade. There's no way he'd come out of that uninjured. I'm sorry, Kajiwara. I said to myself under my breath. And thank you. I bit my lip, then stepped hard on the gas again.
Even though Tateno disappeared from view, I remained for a long time at attention, my fingertips pressed to my temple. I squeezed my eyes shut, but still the tears I've been holding back poured down my cheeks. There were only 30 minutes remaining until the time when Alfred had told us Hitomi should be at the scramble. We need to get ready for action. Is the surveillance camera system still up? I asked.
Yes.
Daisuke replied.
It looks like what happened earlier was just a temporary hacking job.
Then will you help us? Daisuke inclined his head.
What do you mean?
I'd like you to keep your eye on the scramble for us. If anyone suspicious tries to get near Hitomi, let us know.
Anyone suspicious? How will I know what's suspicious?
Like that organ trafficker who suggested you kidnap Hitomi, Mr. Endo. It's possible that he might be Alfred. Would you be able to recognize his face? Daisuke furrows his brow deeply as he began entering commands on his keyboard.
Yeah, don't think I could ever forget. It's because of him that I
He left the rest unsaid. A moment later, several monitors switch over to feeds on a random scramble.
Alright.
Daisuke squinted the images.
I'm not sure how much help I can be, but let me at least try to atone for what I've done.
Of course, and thank you. Daisuke's fingers flew over the keyboard, seeing all the monitors was focused on the scramble and its surroundings. He carefully adjusted the angle and zoom for each of the cameras, and the whole area was under total surveillance. All we had to do was get our stakeout crew to the scene. Where did Achi go? I asked Hitomi.
I'm not totally sure, but I think he went to find some of his old friends.
Hitomi sounded worried. Friends?
Achi used to belong to a gang called SOS.
Just realized with all of this.
Yes.
I understand. Do what you have to and come back soon.
Sorry, I wish I could tell you more.
It's alright. I'll find a way to get by. I had a vague idea what Stanley was up to. I felt he needed to keep things hidden even from his own allies in order to help keep Alfred in the dark. At least that was my guess.
Oh no. Promise me. Wait, are we going or no?
I think we have done this before. Oh, okay, this is new.
No. Once this is all over, you go up here with me.
Sure. Alright. I couldn't help but smile.
That's a promise now, remember? It was 6 o'clock p.m. Alfred had contacted the motley team at Endo Electronics. The situation had immediately deteriorated. But the new development has also provided them with one big chance. A chance that Alfred might appear in person at long last. You did fine. I set my hand on Kano's shoulder. A weak smile came to the detective's face. I paused, unexpectedly moved. For that one moment, I saw in Kano the image of my younger brother, Frank.
Frank.
Jack, you have to get everyone to a safe place right away.
Frank's nervous shout echoed through the hotel lobby. My younger brother was a member of the bomb and arson squad. This was 2 years ago. The CIA had obtained intel that Alphard was targeting a high-class hotel in Chicago for a terror attack. Me and my team had searched the hotel interior and had discovered the bomb set inside a large planter. When Frank arrived at the scene and saw the explosive, his expression grew grim.
The detonation trigger set in the worst possible place. It's gonna be a bastard to remove it.
In that case, you need to get out of here too, Frank, I said.
No, I need to make sure I can figure out how this thing is set up so the disposal unit knows what to do when they get here. I'll be alright. Look, you can probably see it from back there.
I could indeed see the small explosive from where I stood. It was held in place by several screws. The timer had just ticked down past the 30-minute mark.
There's plenty of time for the disposal guys to get here. Jack, I need you to help finish evacuating the building. There are a lot of people who haven't gotten out yet.
But I hesitated. From a cold and logical perspective, Frank was right. He had a job to do, and if I listened to my personal feelings and tried to usher my brother out of there, a lot of innocent people might die.
Alright.
I understand.
Heck, if we had something as simple as dry ice, we could just freeze this thing.
Frank grimaced as he eyed the bomb.
Dry ice, huh? I don't suppose ice cream would do the trick?
That'd be a waste of ice cream. You'd be better off just eating it.
Yeah.
Of course, even dry ice would be a long shot in place of actual liquid nitrogen. We looked at one another, and for a moment, the tension dissolved into laughter. Alright, I said. I'll be back.
Hey, Jack. Once this is all tidied up, I'm gonna need a drink. Let's you and me have a beer together.
Sure. You got it. I headed for the hotel lobby, which was still overflowing with guests. You made the right choice here. I gave Kano a thump on the back, and the detective cracked a tiny grin. What about my choices, though? Debating my own next move, I stepped away from the others and took out my cell phone. I made a call to my superior, Gordon. It's me, I said.
Emilio.
What's the situation?
I hear the Japanese police want to put Maria Osawa under quarantine. I'm assuming that's on your orders, sir?
It is. There are too many important people in Shibuya. We can't allow that virus to get loose. Besides, we now know that Alfred is after Hitomi Osawa. There's no reason to leave Maria at large any longer.
If you put Maria Osawa into quarantine, she is going to die.
I know that. But there will be far fewer victims as a result.
Gordon's words made something inside me snap. In that moment, I lost any inclination to report that I was with Maria. Failure to do so would be dereliction of duty on my part. I knew that well enough. I knew it, but the fact couldn't overcome my revulsion at Gordon's callous attitude towards Maria. Victims are still victims, I said.
What was that?
Nothing, sir. I'll continue my operation to apprehend Alfard. I hung up the phone. I didn't care if my superiors took action against me once this was all over. They intended to sacrifice one person in order to save the lives of countless more. From a purely objective standpoint, it was the right call. But what if that person was a loved one? What would they have done then? The dilemma gnawed at the back of my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was wrong to just accept the lesser of two evils, to sacrifice an innocent for the greater good. No, damn it. I would save that one life, and then save the lives of the many. I needed to find a way to avoid this so-called easy way out, no matter what it took. I wasn't about to add a second big regret to my life. Not this time. Saving Maria was the right thing to do. My judgment wasn't wrong. Of that, I was sure. I reaffirmed that to myself inwardly, over and over. Kano was watching Tateno prepare to depart. The group had put together a reasonable plan of action. Tateno and Canaan would head to the lab with Maria and attempt to get the antiviral from her. I would accompany Kano and the others to the scramble to apprehend Alfard. It was a two-pronged plan of attack. Still, could they really count on things going as smoothly as Canaan had suggested? I thought back to her earlier words.
Canaan.
Once Alfred has made contact with Hitomi, call my cell phone. I have plenty of information Alfred might want to bargain for. I can negotiate with him directly.
That meant that getting the password hinged on whatever deal they struck. What sort of things might Alfard request in exchange? I cast a thoughtful look at Canaan. She was helping Tateno to carry Maria out of the room. I doubted she'd answer if I'd asked just what her bargaining chips were. I held my tongue, watching as she left with the others. Whatever else happened, I needed to focus on capturing Alfard. I glanced at the monitor displays in the workroom. The disembodied sounds of Alfard's voice from earlier crept back into my mind.
I will appear at the rendezvous in person. After all, it wouldn't do for the star of the show to miss the final curtain.
Those words notwithstanding, it seemed absurd that Alfard would actually show up in the flesh. Nationality, age, sex, so much about the terrorist mastermind was shrouded in mystery. Why would someone who had hidden so well for so long ever reveal the true identity? And yet Alfard had gone out of the way to claim that was precisely what was about to happen. It almost seemed like he'd made turning up in person a major selling point of the deal.
I'm looking forward to meeting all of you then.
There was no doubt about it. Alfard wanted them to expect him on site in person. So, why would that be? He's using himself as bait to lure me and Canaan out. This is a near perfect opportunity to wipe out the two people who are gunning for him the most. That being the case, how might he attempt to kill me once I'm at the scramble? I felt a sudden flash of insight. No, something was off here. My thought process was running well, each deduction logically following from the last. But at a time like this, that could be a very dangerous thing. Alfard may well have anticipated where my logic would lead. I need to assume that any clue I thought I'd found was something Alfard had left behind on purpose. So, maybe the suggestion was that our target would come to the scene was a different kind of trap. At the risk of sending myself in circles, I decided to rethink the whole case from the ground up. What was the single strangest part of this whole thing? Aha, there we go. Why had Alphard put an amateur like Daisuke Endo in charge of the kidnapping? Sure, being able to get a heart for his daughter gave Daisuke a strong incentive, but there still had to be a reason why he'd been chosen. If the kidnapping had failed, what would have happened then? Of course, this was Alphard that we were dealing with. Maybe the possibility of failure was somehow part of the plan. Hell, Daisuke might have managed to actually accidentally kidnap Maria instead of Hitomi, hadn't he? If Alphard had gotten with a professional, that sort of mix-up would never have happened. And yet, even if that degree of uncertainty was acceptable, or even desirable, using Daisuke seemed like far too big a risk. There must be some other motive for bringing in Daisuke into the plan. Of course. Advantage. Using Daisuke must have provided some important advantage that outweighed his flaws. It was the only thing that made sense. Which meant that the reason Alphard had Daisuke carry out the kidnapping was carry out some other objective. He set up the kidnapping, devised the ransom relay, and kept the full attention of the police on that. All the while, Alphard himself was working towards his true goal, getting Hitomi's blood. Which meant that Daisuke kidnapping Maria by mistake had in fact been a misstep. That was why, in the end, Alphard had proposed trading the password for Hitomi's blood. Could that really be it? I decided to take it up with the man himself. Mr. Endo, let me ask you something. Did you know Hitomi had a twin sister before the kidnapping?
I didn't. No.
So when did you find out?
After I'd had Maria kidnapped. The organ trafficker took one look at her and said I had the wrong girl. Said I was supposed to have abducted the younger one.
He never mentioned Hitomi having a twin before this all started?
No. If I'd known, I'd have been a lot more careful.
Alphard has certainly known that those Sawa girls are twins. But despite the added risk that fact implied, he hadn't told Daisuke. There was only one logical conclusion. Daisuke's mistake hadn't been an accident. Alphard had intended for the wrong sister to be kidnapped. By using an amateur, Alphard had set the police to write off Daisuke's kidnapping of the wrong target as a simple misstep. Had Daisuke been brought in simply in the name of camouflage? But why? Alphard was after Hitomi's blood. Daisuke was after Hitomi's heart. They both want the same thing. So why target Maria instead? My train of thought had run out of steam again. Still, I was sure I was on the right track. I just needed to keep following until I found where the track would lead. Where's the storeroom where you were keeping Maria? I asked. Daisuke hung his head.
It's out beyond the shop. Why do you ask?
Would you mind showing me? There's something I'd like to check. At this point, I needed to go back over everything, right from the beginning. I followed Daisuke out to the storeroom.
Speaking of this storeroom,
Daisuke said as we were walking to the back part of the building.
there's something I've been wondering about. Just how did Maria manage to escape in the first place?
You're certain you locked her in? I asked. Daisuke nodded.
At 8 o'clock this morning, the organ trafficker came by to check up on her. I made sure to lock the place back up after he left.
I see. That visit must have been when Maria was injected with the UA virus. It makes sense based on our working timeline of when we expect her to go symptomatic. When we got to the storeroom, we spotted the padlock that had held it shut, lying broken on the ground. Daisuke picked it up, then opened the storeroom door.
Yeah, look at this mess.
It was obvious immediately that merchandise had been stolen.
I doubt Maria did this.
Daisuke said.
Maybe some thieves broke in?
He made a quick inspection, assessing what had been taken. Some digital cameras and laptop computers were missing.
Huh.
This looks like the work of some local thugs. This kind of...
This looks like the work of some local thugs. This kind of thing has happened to me a few times before.
Daisuke let out a sigh of exasperation. I, meanwhile, was carefully looking around inside the storeroom. Where did you have Maria Osawa? I asked.
Behind those cardboard boxes.
Boxes he indicated were piled high, closing off one corner of the room. If Maria were unconscious behind them, the burglars might have never noticed her. So Maria was able to escape from the storeroom thanks to the burglars breaking the lock, I mused. Just what impact had that stroke of misfortune had on Alfred's plan, I wondered. What did Alfred plan to do with Maria if nobody had broken in? He was going to trade her for Hitomi. He was going to trade her for Hitomi. It certainly seemed reasonable enough. He needed to kidnap Maria in order to infect her with the virus, first and foremost. And she had indeed been injected with it at 8 o'clock that morning. Next, Alfred would have carried out a hostage exchange for Hitomi in order to obtain her blood. Maria would be free to go, but infected with the UA. What purpose would that serve? It was simple enough to deduce. Once he learned that Maria had the virus, Kenjo Sawa was certain to take action. He would bring her into the storage facility in order to administer the antiviral, just as he'd done with Hitomi. That meant that the storage facility would be opened once more. That was what Alfred was really after. A way in, so he could destroy the antiviral samples of the lab. It was only a logical conclusion. Infecting Hitomi 6 days earlier had ensured that she would be carrying the DDS in her body, but it had also served as a sort of dry run for today. If it turned out that Osawa wasn't able to access the antiviral storage on his own, the entire plan would fall apart. Hitomi had been a test case in order to make sure. The negotiations at the Scramble were almost certainly a smokescreen. Alfred wanted to lure me the others to the Scramble in order to clear the way for an assault on the lab in the meantime. The first order of business was to stop him from getting inside. But how? Should I leave the stakeout at the Scramble for Kano and the others while I headed to the lab myself? I couldn't decide that alone. I headed back into the shop with Daisuke to see where things stood for the others.
At this point, we couldn't count on Canaan anymore. I rushed into action.
Tano's plan of action for a scramble was steadily coming together. I half listened as the young detective discussed the stakeout with the rest of the group. My own mind was still caught up with the question of what I himself would do, or what I would do. I couldn't shake the conviction that I needed to head to the lab. Even assuming that Alphard really did turn up at the scramble, and assuming that he carried out another terror attack there, the worst that could happen would be a disaster in Shibuya. Terrible though that might be, it would be far worse than Alphard, who was already in possession of the Uwa virus, to destroy the world's only supply of the antiviral. If he succeeded at that scheme, his bioweapon would be unstoppable. He could hold the entire planet in the grip of fear. A terrorist arms dealer must never be allowed to obtain that kind of power. I couldn't take that risk. Even if I was wrong in my suspicions, it only made sense to shore up the defense of the lab. There was only one person I could count on now. Canaan. She was on the way to the lab already. If I could alert her to my conclusions, it would make it that much harder for Alphard to carry out his plan. If nothing else, hopefully she could buy time for me to get there. I approached Kano. "You need to go to Scramble without me," I said.
What?
Kano was visibly shocked.
Where's this coming from all of a sudden?
"Please, don't ask me to explain. Something else has come up, and I have to see to it." I hated having to do this. I wish I could explain everything. If I made any unusual moves now, though, there was a risk Alphard would pick up on it. There was no telling where the mastermind might be watching. It was better to keep my companions in the dark, just in case.
I understand.
Kano said.
Do you ever have to? And come back soon.
"I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you more."
It's alright. I'll find a way to get by.
Kano gave me the thumbs up. The sight brought back some painful memories. Up until just a few hours ago, I had instinctively seen Kano as all too native. And now, I finally knew why. Kano was just like my younger brother, Frank. They might have looked very different, but in the way they mixed up their responsibilities with their personal feelings, they were totally alike. I couldn't discount that naivete. In the end, that was all part of the human condition.
Jack, are you really okay with this?
Frank cast me an anxious look at me as we made our way onto the University of Chicago campus. It's my responsibility to look after you, I told him. As long as you take your studying seriously, I'm all for it. Frank had been worrying about tuition costs as he prepared for college. After losing our parents 5 years ago, we'd struggled to get by.
Yeah, but
I set both hands on my brother's shoulders. Listen to me, Frank. You're my brother, and I care about you. I just want whatever you do to be something you can be proud of.
all right, Jack. I hear you. And, well, thanks.
Kano, promise me one thing.
What's that?
Once this is all over, you'll go have a beer with me.
Sure. All right.
That's a promise now. Remember. Kano flashed me a grateful smile. And in that smile, I again saw a little something of Frank. Hurrying out of Endo Electronics, I dialed up Tateno as he ran along. It's Stanley.
What's going on?
What I'm about to tell you is mere conjecture on my part. But for now, let's assume I'm mostly on the right track. I took a deep breath and stilled my nerves. I think Alphard is heading to the lab. Planning on hitting it to destroy the antiviral.
Are you serious?
Tateno's voice was laced with apprehension. Yes, you need to turn back right away. I'll go to the lab with Canaan. The detective's only reply was silence. Did you hear me, Tateno? This is an opponent who's out of her league. Turn back. I'll handle it.
Emilio.
I can't do that.
Now, Tateno's tone was calm and steady. My job is to get Maria to the lab
My job is to get Maria to the lab as soon as humanly possible. Whether Alfred is coming or not doesn't change that.
Don't be absurd. Even if you do have Canaan with you, you can't keep Maria safe and still win the fight that's coming.
I'll give my own life to protect that girl if it comes down to it.
I could tell that I'd never overcome this degree of stubbornness. Fine, have it your way then. But I'm heading to the lab too. Whatever you do not let your guard down.
Understood.
Tateno would be no match for Alfred. If the terrorist spotted the detective, he'd probably kill him on the spot. Reassurance or encouragement would be meaningless. Instead, I left Tateno with one final warning. Just keep Maria safe. That's your job. Just keep Maria safe. That's your job. Tateno hung up without saying anything. I made it to my car, still parked on the roadside. Jumping in, I sped off towards the laboratory. Traffic had gotten pretty congested by the time I'd made it out into the main room. The chaos and panic from the area around Shibuya Station was starting to spread. My frustration steadily growing. I fought my way along the congested streets. Just as my aggravation was beginning to boil over, I finally arrived at Okoshi from the Pharmaceutical Laboratory. He couldn't tell me at least that something was wrong. A plume of smoke was rising from one of the laboratory windows. It was thick and black, clearly a result of a fire of some sort. I hopped out of the car, drawing my gun as I approached the door. I was about to make my way inside when a scent on the air stopped me in my tracks. The smoke carried a telltale odor of explosive residue. I hadn't made on time. All of my fears had come to pass. Maria, Sawa, Tateno, Canaan. They were all surely dead. And no doubt the antiviral had all been earlier stolen or incinerated. In all likelihood, moreover, the viral samples from the lab had been dispersed by explosion. I cursed. I had already inhaled some of the smoke. This really was the worst case scenario. He'd been utterly defeated. I called up Gordon to request backup for a sweep of the laboratory. I knew that it was right to change anything. Even so, I would go through all the motions before I made defeat.
Once we'd made it past Shibuya Station, the roads were relatively clear. We ought to make it to the lab in no time. My phone rang. It was Stanley. What's going on? Oh. I asked the American.
What I'm about to tell you is mere conjecture on my part. But for now, let's assume I'm mostly on the right track.
Stanley's voice was filled with tension. I braced myself for bad news.
I think Alphard is heading to a lab. He's planning on hitting it to destroy the antiviral.
Are you serious? It was even worse than I feared. Alfred heading to the lab.
Yes, you need to turn back right away. I'll go to the lab with Canaan.
Is something wrong?
Canaan asked, peering at me from the back seat. I couldn't hide the fact that I was trembling. She seemed perfectly calm, unfazed by the possibility of further complications. Perhaps she had already anticipated something like this happening.
Did you hear me, Tateno?
Stanley said.
This is an opponent who's out of your league. Turn back. I'll handle it.
I can't do that, I replied, managing to regain my composure. My job is to get Maria to the lab as soon as humanly possible. Whether Alfred is coming or not doesn't change that.
Don't be absurd. Even if you do have Canaan with you, you can't keep Maria safe and still win the fight that's coming.
Maybe Stanley was right. Almost certainly he was right. But I couldn't put Maria's life in danger by turning back in order to save my own. Canaan. I glanced at the young woman in the back seat.
Yes.
If Alfred shows up, don't worry about protecting me. Just keep Maria safe.
You got it.
That was all I needed to hear. I'll give my own life to protect that girl if it comes down to it, I told Stanley.
Fine. Have it your way then. But I'm heading to the lab too. Whatever you do, do not let your guard down.
Understood. I hung up.
That was Stanley?
Canaan asked. She'd probably already surmised the situation. Even so, she showed no sign of concern. At last, the minivan arrived at Hitomi Pharmaceuticals. I pulled up at the front gate and got out of the vehicle. Off to one side of the entrance was an intercom for contacting the security room. I'm assuming you've already heard the details from the director, I barked into the intercom. Open up.
We haven't heard anything from Dr. Osawa.
The security guard spat back.
Moreover, the laboratory is currently on lockdown. I'm sorry, but not even Dr. Osawa is allowed inside.
That's ridiculous. I scowled at the intercom in frustration. Then, a car came racing towards me along the street. The sound of screeching brakes filled the air as the vehicle skidded to a halt, and then Kenji Osawa jumped out from the driver's seat.
Maria!
Osawa rushed over to me, then to Maria, where she lay in the minivan. He looked carefully at his daughter's face.
Thank goodness. Still hasn't gone symptomatic.
Mr. Osawa, why aren't people being allowed into the laboratory? Osawa tilted his head.
They're not?
Frank, you're Osawa.
They're not?
I explained what the guard had said.
It's ridiculous.
Osawa immediately called the security guard on the intercom. He got the same story.
You've got to be kidding me.
Osawa raged.
I'm the lab director here.
But the security guard wasn't hearing it.
I'm sorry, sir. These orders come from Mr. Makino.
No. So, am I just supposed to sit out here and watch my daughter die?
I racked my brain for other ideas. Maybe we'd have to climb the gate and break our way in. Then, over the intercom, we heard the sound of a phone ringing in the security room. The security guard answered it without muting the intercom speaker. His voice was faintly audible. He sounded rather deferential. Who in the world could he be talking to? Before I could muse further, the gate suddenly opened. Huh? Why?
Huh?
Osawa and I looked at one another in surprise.
I have a message for Dr. Osawa, Mr. Makino.
The security guard said.
Makino?
Osawa huddled over the intercom and had a brief sotto voce exchange with the guard. What was that all about? I asked.
It would seem that my wife was able to pull some strings for us.
Osawa smiled uncomfortably. I didn't have time to wonder what that might meant. Has that lock been opened for us as well? I asked. The smile disappeared from Osawa's face.
No. She wasn't able to do anything about the final layer of security.
I see. Well, let's regroup inside for now.
Very well.
Osawa said.
By the way, who's going to be hacking the password?
I am.
Canaan replied.
Ah, so you're Canaan. We should get you to the laboratory then.
After checking to make sure there was nobody suspicious lurking nearby, I headed into the laboratory with the others. It took about 20 seconds for the elevator to reach the first basement level. The biohazard storage area was evidently fairly deep underground. The doors opened to reveal a long, straight corridor. There was a door at the far end, with a device at one side for checking IDs. Canaan approached the device, setting the laptop she'd borrowed from the security room on the floor in front of it. She affixed a scrap of paper with Kenji Osawa's password written on it to one side of the monitor. Then she connected a series of cables to both the laptop and the device. I tried to contain my sense of urgency, focusing on keeping watch over Canaan as she worked. Canaan began to slowly tap away at the keyboard. Her screen displayed a series of numeric values that changed with each keystroke. She checked the changes carefully, timing the movements of her fingers according to some formula. The ID device let out a warning sound, and the display lit up. Incorrect password. The input had been rejected. Was this really going to work? I felt my impatience growing. Osawa's face showed a similar unease. Canaan turned to look at us.
How many failed attempts are we allowed?
Sawa. Frank.
2, I believe.
Osawa answered.
After a third failed attempt, the storage area is locked down and can't be reopened without input from the full board of directors.
Canaan had already resumed typing before he finished speaking.
There's a very slight difference in power consumption from the device when it processes a correct password compared to an incorrect one. There's a minuscule difference in the time it takes to run the process as well. If I can analyze those and compare them...
Kanaan's voice trailed off. She continued working. There was another warning sound. A second failed attempt. A single bead of sweat ran down my forehead. But Canaan didn't so much as bat an eyelash.
I see.
Her face remained full of confidence.
It won't be a problem.
She assured us.
This isn't my first time with this type of mechanism.
Slowly, one at a time, Canaan pressed key after key, while keeping her eyes fixed on the laptop screen. With each keystroke, a waveform at the top of the screen, looking almost like an echocardiogram readout, wobbled slightly. The laptop let out a tiny sound. A sequence of 10 characters appeared on the screen, and Canaan read them off. I jotted them down in my notebook, then stepped up to the scanner to enter the twin passwords from Osawa and Tanaka. The door opened. Canaan let out a sigh of relief. Osawa gathered up Maria and headed into the storage area. I felt a surge of relief as I watched the two of them go. Canaan, meanwhile, was fastidiously putting away her equipment. "What do you think?" I asked her.
About what?
She asked, her gaze as serious as ever. "About Alfred. Why hasn't he show up?" If what Stanley had said was true, Alfred ought to be coming their way. It was both strange and unsettling that they'd been able to get inside without any interference. "This isn't over yet," I continued. "Don't let your guard down until we know Alfred has been dealt with."
Right.
Canaan pulled out a pistol.
You keep those two safe.
She said.
I'll go check things out up front.
She got back into the elevator and headed up. Left alone in the hallway, I was enveloped by an eerie silence. I drew my gun from its holster, then went into the storage area to join Osawa and his daughter. My cane and the soles of my shoes echoed on the hard surfaces all around. At the end of the hallway, I came to another door. I took up position there, determined to guard the two individuals inside. This was the only way in. If anyone was coming, they'd have to pass through here. Putting my back to the door, I let out a sigh. A great weight of exhaustion settled over me. Too much had happened all over the past few hours. I recalled too many painful memories that had long been buried deep within my mind. And I'd realized that my whole life was rife with things I could never undo. If you're coming, then come on. I aimed my gun down the empty corridor. Right now, I just needed to protect Maria. That had become my life's sole purpose. Suddenly, the door that was in front of me was blown off of its hinges from a tremendous explosion. The shockwave traveling down the corridor struck me an instant later. I had neither the time to wonder what happened, nor any chance to avert my fate.
Yeah, Jack, go ahead.
He was going to release her at some later time. Since he got into trouble infecting her with the virus, it only made sense. And I could only think of one reason to release an infected Maria. To turn Shibuya into ground zero for a pandemic that would sweep through all of Tokyo. The virus with a mortality rate of 100 would have spread throughout the region before anyone even realized it. It would have been impossible even to calculate the scope of such a disaster. First, it would run the circuit around the Yamanote line, and then, if any of the infected happened to head to airports at either Haneda or Narita, the virus would spread throughout Japan and the rest of the world in a matter of hours. But that hadn't come to pass. We'd managed to secure Maria before she could develop symptoms and become infectious. Is that because we were better than Alfred? No, that can't be it. Alfred wasn't the sort to commit such indiscriminate acts of terror. The threat of the infection spreading, horrific as it was likely just covered to hide some other scheme. But then, what was the ultimate goal? I still didn't have enough clues to go on. I made my way behind a stack of cardboard boxes. I spotted something that had fallen on the floor. It was a cell phone. Next to it was a woman's handbag. I unzipped it and it held a jumble of makeup, tissues, and other personal effects, but nothing at all unusual. If I was going to find any clues here, it would probably have to be from the cell phone. I tried turning it on. There was no response. It appeared to be broken.
Frank.
Let me see that.
Isuke said from behind me.
I'll see if I can fix it.
Do you think you can? I asked as I handed it over.
I won't know until I try. But that sign out front saying that I run into an electronics shop isn't just for show.
Bringing my attention back to the handbag, I searched it more thoroughly and found a photograph tucked inside that I had overlooked on my first inspection. What the hell? I stared at the image, swallowing the lump in my throat. Wait, this is new.
The SOS members fanned out, positioning themselves the best they could to intercept the falling vials. I likewise prepared to catch one that was heading straight towards me. As I did, I caught sight of Palmer speeding away. Made up my mind on the spot. There's only one right call here, and I need to make it. I had to chase after Palmer. It didn't matter if I didn't grab the vial. Something about the way this was playing out made me sure of it. Calling upon all of my rugby training, I broke into a sprint. Deftly dodging through the crowd, I kept Palmer in sight. I would catch him. One way or another, I was going to bring that bastard down. Steadily, I gained on his quarry. At last, I drew it in striking range and immediately dived into the expert tackle. I caught Palmer around the waist. Our bodies collided with violent force. Palmer went down, flailing and hit the pavement hard. He tried to resist, but I straddled him and held him down. "Tell me the password!" I snarled. The kidnapper sneered triumphantly.
You made the wrong choice.
Wrong choice?
The UA is out now. Now nobody can be saved. You just killed everyone in the city.
No. I shot back. Nobody's gonna die.
And what makes you so sure of that?
The way you fled the scene just now. A device had really been in those vials. Could never had hoped to escape infection. Run off on foot would be pointless. Palmer said nothing, which means there was no virus in those vials. It was just a decoy in order to buy you the time to escape. Now Palmer gritted his teeth and glared up at me. The look on his face confirmed my hunch. More importantly, it was your eyes. You didn't have the eyes of a man who was putting his life on the line.
My eyes? Who do you think you are, Sherlock Holmes?
I know full well to look in a man's eyes when he's willing to die. In the back of my mind, I replayed a moment when Tateno doused in gasoline. I marched into that financial office to talk down would-be arsonists. Now then, the password. Give it to me now! I tightened my grip on Palmer's collar, and he just gazed back at me with an icy glare.
Let me have Tomiosawa's blood. That was their original deal.
I wasn't surprised. I know it wouldn't be easy to get him to talk. It really would be impossible to strike a deal without Canaan. If getting her on the phone wasn't an option, I had to figure out something else. Sweat bead on my brow as I cast about for ideas. Then I happened to catch sight of a car that had been overturned by an accident nearby. Gasoline spilled from the vehicle, creating a broad, dark puddle on the pavement. I took out my handcuffs, then cuffed Palmer's arm to my own. Come with me. Jerking my captive back to his feet, I led him over to the car. Then, without hesitation, I sat down to pull gasoline. Yanking the handcuffs, I pulled Palmer down beside me. I pulled a lighter from my pocket. Palmer snorted.
And what's this supposed to be,
Tell me the password.
Or else what? Light the gas. You'll be burned to a crisp yourself.
Yeah, probably. I heard a casual desperation in my own voice.
What the hell are you thinking?
The smile vanished from Palmer's face. I scolded down him. I just want to know the password.
If that's really what you're after, then you can't kill me.
Palmer and me locked eyes, both refusing to back down. The scent of gasoline fumes filled the air around them. Us. I knew the slight spark could set off a massive fireball. Calmly, I flicked the lighter on.
You can't be serious.
Palmer's eyes fixed on the tiny flicker of flame. The password.
You value your life so little.
The password! In my mind, I could see the pages of the diary clear as day. Dictum number 1. Never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect. Ever. Palmer glared in defiance. I brought the lighter closer and closer to the gasoline. I could practically feel my own life growing shorter as his hand descended. Yet, I felt no trace of fear. My body was numb, my senses strangely distant. Time seemed to slow, the world around me dissolved into a blur. I was surprised at how calm, how remote I felt, here in the midst of this life-or-death confrontation. And then, far in the depths of Palmer's eyes, he saw the barest hint of doubt. He fixed his gaze on that point of weakness and did not look away. Palmer's shoulders slumped perceptibly. Now I was certain of it. This was a man who never put his life on the line before. Shizuya's words sounded in the back of my mind. Frank.
You need a cool mind, but a fiery spirit. A detective without both of those is worth nothing.
Let me go. Promise to let me go, and I'll tell you.
Is that your answer? I don't think you quite understand the situation here. I brought the flame still closer to the gasoline. Palmer's eyes went wide. No longer was he able to hide his trembling uncertainty.
All right. I'll tell you. Put that thing out.
The password first! I voiced a strangled snarl. Palmer gave me the password. Extinguished the lighter. Pulling out my cell phone, I dialed up Osawa. As I did, I recalled his last exchange with Stanley at the electronics shop.
Turning my attention back to the handbag, I searched it more thoroughly and found a photograph tucked inside that I'd overlooked on my first inspection. What the hell? I stared at the picture, swallowing a lump in my throat. It was a photo of Maria, standing next to another young girl. There was something written in marker on the back. Me and Canaan, 7:30. I hurriedly flipped the photo back over and looked at it again. What does this mean? The girl in the photo with Maria looked nothing like the Canaan who had been there at Endo Electronics, who had left with Maria and Tateno just a few minutes ago. But if the girl they were working with wasn't Canaan, then who was she? No. I felt my blood run cold. Could she be... Was she Alfred? The more I thought about it, the more it all added up. Assuming Alfred were masquerading as Canaan, the whole sequence of events suddenly began to make sense. She was strikingly audacious and fiendishly clever, but she hadn't maneuvered them just yet. As luck would have it, they still had a chance to stop her. And at long last, Stanley could see the outline of Alfred's plan. Her goal was to get the antiviral. But extracting the DDS from Hitomi's blood wasn't enough. Koshi Pharmaceutical still had the drug at the laboratory. The antiviral's value came specifically from having a monopoly on it, which meant that, in order to be obtaining the drug herself, Alfred also needed to destroy Koshi's research facilities. That was the crux of her plan. The problem was finding a way to infiltrate those facilities. In all likelihood, Alfred's scheme went something like this. Have Maria Osawa kidnapped, then infected with the UO virus. After that, eliminate Tanaka. Once Osawa learned that Maria had been infected with the virus, he was certain to use the antiviral on her. But he'd need his partner Tanaka in order to access the storage facility, and Tanaka was dead. That was why Alfred had been masquerading as Canaan. Canaan was Maria's friend and an expert at hacking passwords. If she could secure Osawa's trust, he would let her into a research facility in order to carry out the hack. That's why Alfred, in the guise of Canaan, had saved Hitomi's life repeatedly. Getting Hitomi to trust her would likewise earn the trust of her father. There were still some finer details that remained a mystery. For instance, how was Alphard going to destroy the lab? Still, I could look into that once I had her in custody. I needed to move quickly and stop her from ever getting into the Koshi facility.
Frank. Daisuke. Frank. Nolan, cover.
I fixed it.
Daisuke approached me and held out Maria's cell phone.
Well, as best as I could, at any rate. It looks like it'll get a signal, but whatever data was on it is all gone.
I see. I took the phone and put it in my pocket. I hoped I might be able to learn something useful from it, but luck evidently wasn't on my side. I was just going to have to go up against Alphard with what I already had. Now that I guessed what was really going on, I went to talk to Kano. You need to go to the scramble without me, I said.
What?
Kano was visibly shocked.
Where's this coming from all of a sudden?
Please, don't ask me to explain. Something else has come up, and I have to see to it. I hated having to do this. I wish I could explain everything. But if I made any unusual moves now, there was a risk that Alphard would pick up on it. It was better to keep my companions in the dark, just in case.
I understand.
Kano said.
Do what you had to, and come back soon.
I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you more.
It's alright. I'll find a way to get by.
Kano gave me a thumbs up. The sight brought back some painful memories. Up until just a few hours ago, I had instinctively seen Kano as all too native. And now, I finally knew why. Kano was just like my younger brother,
We just
Frank.
go through all this.
Yeah. Wait, hurrying out of Endo Electronics, I dialed up Tateno as he ran along. Listen carefully, your life may depend on it, I said as soon as Tateno picked up. I knew the detective wouldn't be able to respond openly, since Alphard was right there with them. On the spur of the moment, I devised a simple code for how he should answer, yes or no. I told Tateno to respond with "that's right" to mean yes, and "will do" to mean no. There was no time for anything more complex. Right now, I just need to stop Alphard from getting to the lab. I quickly explained my suspicions about Canaan. Tateno sounded distinctively unnerved. At any rate, I said, we need to find a way to turn back without her realizing what's going on.
Will do.
Tateno replied. So I was going to head to the laboratory despite... So he was going to head to the laboratory despite my instructions. Saving Maria is your top priority, isn't it?
That's right.
The detective's information was firm. Alright then. Okay. Guess I'll just have to head that way myself. In the meantime, do not let her get inside that lab.
That's right.
Tateno was no match for Alfred. If she figured out what was going on, she'd probably kill him on the spot. Reassurance or encouragement would be meaningless right now. Instead, I left Tateno with one final warning. Comes down to it, just shoot her. Comes down to it, just shoot her. If you hesitate for a moment, she'll have you dead. Tateno hung up without saying anything. The area under Gonzaga was in disarray. The government had declared a state of high alert, and the people on the street were milling around uneasily, unsure just what was going on. The main roads had been blocked off, and automobiles and motorcycles were at a standstill. Some vehicles had overturned on the curb as in an apparent attempt to circumvent the blockade. Any moment now, Kano's team would be putting their plan into action at the scramble. Yeah, I wasn't sure who they might have gotten help, but Kano was certain to put them at ease. Please, stay safe. Don't you dare die. I prayed silently as I darted underneath the runway on the overpass. I made it to my car, still parked in the woods on the roadside. Unfortunately, being blocked off area. Jumping in, I sped off toward the laboratory. As I drove along, I again tried to deduce Alfred's plan of action. If Alfred herself was on the way to the lab, then what was the objective of the fake could be sent to the scramble? It came in from Tateno. Down to here. I picked up quickly, but as I did, I wondered, why was Tateno calling me? Alfred was right there. There's no way the detective should be risking a phone call. What's going on? Tateno said nothing. I repeated the question. Still, Tateno did not reply. My apprehension spread like a droplet of ink in water. Hey, something happened? Hey. Answer me. Call cut out. I hurriedly dialed Tateno's number, but I couldn't get through. Something had gone badly wrong. I was sure of it. Had I been too arrogant in thinking that he might be a match for Alfred? My worries turned to the team at the scramble. What if they had walked into a trap? Figuring that would be too dangerous to call Canaan in the midst of the negotiations, I instead dialed up Achi. Achi? Hello?
Mr. Stanley? What's going on?
To my relief, it sounded like things down at the scramble had gone well enough, so I asked Achi to put me on the phone with Kano.
Yeah, give me a second.
The young man said.
Detective!
I could hear Achi shouting on the other end.
I've got Stanley on the line. He said that Dr. Tateno.
There was a sudden tremendous boom, and then the call cut out. My jaw dropped. I felt my mind emptied out by despair. I opened my mouth, but I couldn't even bring myself to scream. All I could do was curse inwardly. Again. I slammed my fist into the steering wheel as hard as I could. Then I did again, and again, and again, and again, and again. I didn't stop even when my fist was marred in blood.